1 in 3. That's how many American men will face physical violence, sexual assault, or stalking by an intimate partner. 1 in 3 women worldwide will endure physical or sexual abuse, most often by someone they know. But domestic abuse isn't just bruises. It's manipulation, it's fear, it's control that seeps into every part of your life. I'm Ingrid Dutton, and I survived it. Then I created 1 in 3 so no one else has to suffer in silence. Each week, we break that silence together. Occasionally joined by survivors, loved ones, and experts, we talk about the pain, yes, but also about the healing, resilience, and the fight to reclaim your life. This podcast is more than awareness, it's a lifeline. And a reminder, you are seen, you are heard, you are never alone. Search for 1 in 3 wherever you get your podcasts, because every voice matters and every story deserves to be heard. According to the American Heart Association, stroke is the number 5 cause of death and a leading cause of disability in the United States. 80% of those are preventable. When you think of stroke victims, most likely you picture someone elderly or who has made poor lifestyle choices. But that's not always the case. Sometimes it's someone young, someone who is otherwise healthy, a young woman, a young mother. This is Rachel's story. Well, I'm going to just jump in to this story.
Well, should I ask you how you're doing? How are you doing?
What? Oh, you're rude. Do you care? Or are you just asking now because you don't want to be rude?
Now.
You what?
I'm just being polite now.
Oh, okay. I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good. So anyway, this story that I have today, I'm hoping that it can be released sometime around February 4th of 2022, because that is the American Heart Association's Go Red for Women Day. Do you know what that is?
Where you wear red?
Well, yes. Do you know why?
For heart awareness?
Kind of. So it's like their campaign to bring awareness and provide education for women and heart disease.
You need to let me know next time you're going to ask me a question to make sure I'm not taking a drink.
Well, slow down on your drinking.
The listeners don't know what I'm drinking. It's water and wine.
Mixed together?
No. A little bit of both, so I don't have a headache.
Smart. Well, so the reason they have this campaign is because cardiovascular disease is the cause of 1 in 3 deaths each year in women. It makes it the number 1 killer.
Okay, so let me be dumb. Cardiovascular disease, is that anything to do with the heart?
Yes. So it's not just the heart.
Is it like the veins and arteries?
Cardio, what?
Veins and arteries?
Yes. So cardio is heart. Vascular is all the veins, arteries, and everything. So cardiovascular disease is like this huge umbrella of diseases of the heart. It can be the brain. What?
They can't see you.
You can. And I can't speak unless I'm doing arm motions. It's just
okay. It's this big umbrella. I'm sorry.
Right. And so it encompasses diseases of like vascular stuff too. It's like veins, arteries, legs, lungs, brain, and
like
everything. Yes. And so anyway, that is why we are doing this story. This is Rachel Groves, who I knew in Orlando, worked with her briefly, but I knew her prior to actually working with her in the hospital setting. So she was kind enough to allow us to tell her story. She has the entire thing is posted on her website, which we will provide a link somewhere We have to figure out. Well,
In the comments section.
in the comments. Okay. But it's the Young Empowered Stroke Survivors Foundation, or YES, YESS. And that was, from what I understand, it was created by Rachel and another individual in the Central Florida area who is also a young stroke survivor. This is In One Stroke. The summer of 2016 began a journey and a learning experience I never expected to endure, especially at the age of 32, with a young family and a progressing career. Since June 3rd, 2016, a date I will never forget, I have found a strength beyond what I ever thought possible. I have learned that my children are more than just children who love me. They motivate me every day. This is my comeback strong story from a massive stroke. It was the beginning of summer of 2016. It had been a busy time of year for us, more than usual. In May 2016, we finished closing on our new home, became first-time landlords, signing our first contract with tenants, packed, moved, celebrated our son's 4th birthday party, cheered him on at his last soccer game of the season, and attended my grandmother's funeral. It was beyond a crazy busy time of life, never mind the daily grind of work and loving and caring for an 18-month-old and a new 4-year-old. But
so
that was,
I'm so sorry. She was 32, you said?
she was 32. And
Okay.
again, so this was in 2016.
Okay.
But that was life at the moment, and it was an exciting time. June 3rd, 2016 was a Friday, like any other day of the week. Little did I know how drastically life would change and how life's priorities would be put into perspective in the next few hours. I finished up my afternoon working as a rounding nurse practitioner. I went to pick up my kids, went to the grocery store, and then went home to unload the kids and the groceries. And then I went upstairs to change out of my work clothes and get into play clothes to play with the kids. It was a typical day in the life of a full-time working mom. So I think they had a 2-story house, and like the upstairs had like a play room kind of area. Anyway, I felt fine all day long. No headaches, no blurry vision, no numbness, no tingling. I felt good, besides a little fatigued and tired, but what working mom isn't? For me, it was typical for the end of the week. While my kids were playing upstairs, I went to use the restroom. Let's see. It started with a loud pop and ringing in my ears. Next, my vision got spotty, and then progressive numbness and tingling in my fingers and toes began. I couldn't shake it. I took a few deep breaths, thinking it was nothing. But as the symptoms continued to progress, I knew I was in trouble. As a curtain was pulled over my eyes until I could no longer see, I yelled for my 4-year-old son. Hearing myself speak, I realized my speech did not sound right. So, with the little speech I had left, I remember telling him, "Mommy is in trouble. Get help." As I tried to stand from the toilet, I fell to the floor with no control over my body movements. My arms were flopping and lifeless when I tried to lift them. I had no ability to see. My speech was garbled, slurred, and I'm sure at this point I was not understandable, just a bunch of mumble jumble. I had no power. I had no warning. I knew it was happening, but this is not what a stroke patient looks like, I kept thinking. I am only 32 and healthy. This can't be happening to me. Dear God, not a stroke, please, I kept saying in my head. I knew the devastating aftermath a stroke leaves behind, and I thought, how would I be a mom and a wife if left like this? My 4-year-old then dragged me from my bathroom to the stairs to try and help him unlatch the baby gate so he could get to the phone to call for help, which was downstairs.
Oh my God.
I know.
Oh, that got me.
4-year-old. Yeah. He eventually kicked the gate open, went downstairs, and called 911 for help. He will forever be my hero. I know. As he, well, I mean, I cry every time I read this. I'm trying not to have my voice crack, and I don't know if it's working or not. As he called 911 and told the operator his mommy needed help, I could hear my 18-month-old daughter in the loft screaming and crying. I tried to mumble to her to calm her, but with no success. My son returned upstairs with the phone, placed it next to my ear, and went to console his sister. I mean, this kid, he's amazing. I could hear the operator on the phone saying they couldn't find our address. I tried to speak and give her the address, but no one could understand me. Because we had recently moved, there was confusion on the address, adding to my mounting frustration and helplessness. Once help arrived, I was so relieved. It had felt like forever that I had been laying on the floor. This was so frustrating for me, and I had no control over myself or my ability to do anything. As a nurse, I knew I was having a stroke, and there was nothing I could do but wait and trust that God would step in.
What causes the stroke?
Oh, there are so many different causes for stroke. She kind of, what? Go ahead.
Like, what is an actual stroke? Is it a stop of blood flow or?
Yes. So when you think of like a heart attack, there is part of the heart that's not getting blood. So it's the same thing for a stroke. There's part of the brain that's not getting blood. And there can be a clot or some kind of blockage there. You can also have where the blood vessel bursts.
Isn't that an aneurysm?
It could be due to an aneurysm, but that's called a hemorrhagic stroke, where it's bleeding. Okay. So as they loaded me on a stretcher and into an ambulance, my next concern was, what about my kids?
Right.
Since I could not see or speak, I could not voice my requests or even see where my kids were or what they were witnessing. I heard someone say the police officer would stay with them, which at the time I guess was comforting to know, but then where would my husband go? He would have to decide to go from work to meet the ambulance at the hospital or go home and be with our children. Just as these and many other thoughts raced through my mind, this is another emotional part. An unfamiliar but calm voice came near, and it was one of our new neighbors. So again, they had just moved into this neighborhood. I mean, like really had just moved in and didn't really know anyone yet. Let's see. He lived across the street and came to help. He happened to go to our church and knew us. I heard him say he and his wife would take the kids and look out for them as long as needed. I will never forget his voice or his actions. It was the first moment of peace that came over me.
Jeez, I got me again.
I warned you.
No, I wasn't ready.
Once I was loaded and ready to roll, unfortunately, my frustration would continue to grow. Hindsight is always 20/20, but because of where my stroke was located, and maybe my age, again, 32, I did not present with the typical features of one-sided weakness or facial droop. My deficits were equal bilaterally, and the movement of the ambulance on the road made me so dizzy I was vomiting with slurred and sometimes incomprehensible speech, not unlike that of a drunk patient, how like a drunk patient would present just without the smell. I recall a paramedic handing me what I believed to be a vomit bag to vomit in, but I couldn't hold it or see it. My first encounter with swallowing my pride kicked in as I was naked and now covered in my own vomit. My inability to see or move or communicate was so defeating, especially as I knew what was happening, but I could hear no urgency in the first responders. They determined I did not need to go to the hospital with lights and sirens, and I did not need to arrive as a code gray, which is a stroke alert. Regrettably, I knew this would potentially delay my treatment upon arrival, and treatment for stroke is extremely time sensitive. Again, another moment I had to trust that God was in control and would take care of me. However, I could not fathom why this or how this could be happening to me. It was in this time I spent laying on the stretcher in an ambulance where I had to surrender what little control I thought I might have left and allow God to truly step in and take control. And for those who know me, they know how difficult letting go of control is for me. But God did just that. Little did I know that he was already intervening on my behalf. The first responders had reached my husband and explained they were taking me to the hospital. Luckily, I had prior conversations with my husband about which hospitals to go to and which ones to decline for certain types of care. The benefit of working in healthcare, I suppose. My husband pleaded with them to take me to a larger center where they could handle anything and everything. After some persistence on his part, the paramedics agreed to reroute, and I ended up at a hospital equipped to treat and manage what we soon would learn had occurred. It was also the hospital that one of my best nurse practitioner friends happened to be working at the time of my arrival, and she would become my next angel. Once I arrived at the hospital, I was taken to a room where they took my vitals, blood was drawn, and the doctor arrived to assess me. I am unaware how long I was in this room, but before I heard my friend's voice come through the door, but I was so relieved. She started trying to talk to me and quickly realized something was very wrong. I heard the doctor ask her, "What about your friend is not right?" She immediately responded with, "This isn't her. She is very intelligent, very put together, very fast thinking." Meanwhile, over the intercom, I heard 2 code gray, again, that's a stroke, alerts called. This meant those patients would get priority in a CT scanner over me as I was not initially assessed as a stroke alert. But I knew that's where I needed to go and fast. My friend, thank heaven, insisted I be the next patient in the CT scanner.
Was that you?
No, that was Allison. After the results from the scan came in, it became very clear that I was having a large stroke. I showered clots into 5 places in my head, with the largest cutting off blood supply to my right and left cerebellar regions. I could hear the pharmacist in the room preparing to hang TPA, which is a very strong clot busting medication. That is when the reality of what I feared was happening was confirmed. I kept thinking, hand the TPA fast, as I knew it had been a while since my symptoms began. There's only a 3-hour window in which you can give TPA. And I don't know that she had any idea how much time had passed. Just then, I heard someone holler into the room, "Do not give the TPA." Those words cut through me, as this was my best chance of stopping further damage and limiting disabilities and potentially restoring some of the functions, such as my vision, which I had lost. But I had already started to have brain swelling near my brainstem. I was no longer a candidate for TPA. The damage had begun, and how much more damage there would be remained to be seen over the next 24 hours. Knowing what I knew, I remember hearing my husband's voice in the room, leaning in his direction and telling him in mumble jumble, "Please do not leave me a vegetable. Do not put me in a nursing home." Knowing that swelling near my brainstem could leave me totally bedridden, potentially unable to see, unable to communicate, unable to do anything for myself. The fear of total disability flooded my mind, and I think at that moment it scared me more than death itself. The longest and scariest 24 hours of my life began. All anyone could do for me was to wait and see if symptoms would get better, would get worse, or if I would need surgical intervention. I was admitted to the neuro ICU where I would spend the next few days. I remember feeling so tired I couldn't keep my eyes open and the headache was crushing. I could hear people, nurses, doctors, techs, my family quietly coming and going. Over the next several days, I would have the $1 million workup. I was seen by neurology, neurosurgery, critical care doctors, hematology, cardiology, and a cardiac surgeon. I would have multiple CAT scans, MRIs, ultrasounds of my legs, neck, heart, and blood work galore as everyone tried to determine why I had such a massive stroke at such a young age. Over the first 24 hours, I recall my anxiety, my fear of breathing or moving as to not dislodge another clot somewhere, wanting to keep my head elevated to decrease the risks of brain swelling. I quickly wished I didn't know what I knew. Knowledge is power, my aunt always tells me, but at this moment, knowledge was terrifying. The agonizing wait and see approach was the only option we had over the next 24 to 72 hours. Would I end up needing extremely risky surgery to remove the clot? Would the swelling near my brainstem swell enough to take my life? Would I ever regain my eyesight and see my kids and family again? So many questions and fears and no control or intervention to determine or predict my outcome. Laying in the ICU on the other side of the bed as a patient and for the first time not a provider of care gave me a new perspective for sure. It was terrifying, yet at some level I felt strangely at peace when nothing made sense and felt so unfair. When fear and uncertainty was overcoming, God's presence became enough, and I felt a peace as I surrendered all and I could rest. I knew as the night was holding on to me, God was holding on too. However, for my family and my children, it was a traumatically difficult time of preparing for the worst, praying and hoping for the best. It was a heavy, what's that?
I said, I can't imagine.
Can't imagine. I know.
Either
And
anyone in that situation.
no. And her husband's also a very intelligent individual. Like he's not medical, but Rachel would talk to him enough. So he had, I think, a good understanding of what potentially could happen. Mm-hmm. And I just can't even imagine. I mean, you have a 4-year-old and an 18-month-old too. And I mean, just like you think like 2 weeks ago, life was, I mean, you were at your peak, both good, stable jobs, moved to a new house, like just, right. All these. Yeah. At the 24 hours mark, I began to have some visual improvement, and my 24-hour follow-up CT scan showed improvement in the large clot with localized return in some blood flow. With that news, I felt like I could breathe again. By 72 hours, I had regained my vision. It was a huge weight that lifted off my shoulders. Now the real recovery journey began. Let's see. Okay, here. I could see my family, I could see my kids, and little did I know how big of an impact they would have on my motivational drive through rehab. So then she goes on to say that the life-threatening period passed, and then she had to look at the deficits that she had. And I now needed help to eat, dress, shower, toilet, stand, walk, and talk. I felt like I had re-entered the stage of toddlerhood. And I mean, she has a 4-year-old and an 18-month-old. Let's see. She couldn't return home, so she had to go to inpatient rehab. Let's see. I knew it was for the best, but it was devastating to me. And it finally hit me in the face on the evening I was transferred to inpatient rehab. This was the first night I cried myself to sleep. The hardest part of inpatient rehab was being away from my family, especially my children. And I know it was difficult for them too. The first time my almost 2-year-old saw me, I was in a wheelchair. She was scared of all the hospital surroundings, a heart monitor, IVs. It took her a long time to warm up to me, to give me a hug and let me hold her on my lap. I realize now the impact this event has had, not just on me, but on my kids and family as well. I felt like I was on an emotional roller coaster. So she, of course, kind of felt like depression sort of moving in a little bit. And then she starts daily physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy. Began hours a day for weeks, which turned into months.
She was in inpatient rehab for months?
It sounds like it.
Okay.
Let's see. She said, she does say, terrifying thought at first, but eventually relearning how to do basic activities of daily living right alongside my kids and biggest cheerleaders would become one of my greatest moments. I mean, like, what a cool, positive way to look at it, like you get to learn how to do stuff with your kids. Speech therapy pushed me to read silly short stories, limericks, tongue twisters. My voice was very monotone and slow. I blew bubbles in water, hummed vocal scales, and my homework was to read Dr. Seuss books and sing with my kids to help relearn voice inflection and tone. I mean, there's a lot of detail in this. I mean, this is all really, really good. It's a very good read, but she goes on to say how much she had to do. She worked with physical therapy. She asked them to give her homework each night. So she would do physical therapy for hours, and then she would lay in bed at night doing more exercises. This is cool. She learned to walk. They use a lot of music therapy, and they had music, and it taught her how to walk with a stride, which I think that was really cool. Was able to walk. So months of intensive therapy. I had to grow a sense of humor and learn to laugh more than I cried. I had to embrace sometimes what seemed like such silly, sometimes embarrassing and childish exercises. I learned how to brush my teeth, get dressed, transfer into the shower onto my shower chair. At home, folding clothes was now an exercise and not a chore. I learned to write my ABCs and my 1, 2, 3s all over again while Jack, and that's their 4-year-old, practiced writing his. Coloring was homework. In spite of the challenge, I was determined to walk again on my own without a walker or cane. And this is where she asked for the nightly homework from her physical therapist. She does say in here that one thing she kind of was forced to do is laying in rehab, from being somebody who was so active. Again, she had a full-time job in the hospital, 2 small kids, and a new home and everything. She was just always on the go. And this made her stop. And there was no other place to go. There were no other commitments. It was strictly this. So it really made her focus on kind of living in the moment and realizing what was important in life. This is an important part. Over the course of the next year that followed, I feel like I've been poked and prodded and thoroughly scanned from head to toe, yet we haven't been able to determine why or where this stroke came from. They call this kind of stroke cryptogenic. I have overcome my trepidation about the bathroom where it all began, and I no longer need any assistive devices to function on a daily basis. I have had several procedures to better monitor for a potential cause of my stroke, but still to no avail. I have had surgery to overcome a side effect of treatment on blood thinners and underwent surgery to close a hole in my heart that was discovered during all of this. I have had a great team of doctors, nurses, and therapists, and being on the patient side of things has definitely given me a new perspective and respect for patients and caregivers. June 3rd, 2017 marks 1 year since my stroke. Since then, I returned back to what looks like normal life to most people, walking and climbing up and down stairs, showering on my own, cooking dinner, driving, and writing and typing for short periods. Normal activities we all take for granted, or at least I did. My PTOTST vestibular therapy is now an all-at-home based program as recovery seems to have plateaued. I continue these exercises along with a regimen of rest and good diet to the best of my ability as my deficits still try to creep back in, especially when I overdo it or get tired or fatigued. Writing is no more than a paragraph at a time. Typing something like this story is completed weeks to months at short intervals. By the end of the day, my gait staggers, my speech wants to slur, I get the dropsies and muscle tremors in my hand, fingers, and legs kick in. I may feel dizzy at times. I may fatigue easily as physical and cognitive activity still consumes much energy. I may not tolerate lots of visual stimulation or dark or noisy environments very well. I may have more frequent headaches. I may have difficulty multitasking, and I may likely forget it if I don't write it down. But in spite of it all, I'm beyond blessed for the recovery I have, given the deficits I started with.
Wow. How's she doing now?
Well, we're going to talk to her.
Okay.
Through it all, I've been told I have a better sense of humor and I am more laid back. I've truly grown as a person and had more time than I wanted for some days for a lot of self-reflection. Thoughts and attitude, I believe, make all the difference in the recovery process. I was determined to be optimistic, to be an overcomer, and to be as positive as I could be. My kids and family were my motivation. I am a mom, a wife, a nurse practitioner, and a stroke survivor. After such a personal catastrophe, I have once again found happiness and a positive perception of life. Through this journey and lots of self-reflection, I have learned what I really want in life, what I truly value, and that's my health, my ability to function independently, my children, my family, and my friendships. I'm more than blessed. And then she goes on to thank a lot of people. And she ends it with a Bible verse, James chapter 1, verse 4, let perseverance finish its work that you may be mature, complete, not lacking anything. And that's Rachel's story. You guys, thank you so much for listening to this story. I'm super excited to say that our next episode is an interview with Rachel and Ray. Ray is the co-founder for the YESS Foundation, YESS, which stands for the Young Empowered Stroke Survivors. We're going to hear an update on Rachel and see how she's been doing over the last few years. We will also hear Ray's stroke story. We're going to hear about their involvement within the community and the YESS Foundation. So you definitely want to stick around and grab that next episode.
If you would like to contact us or send in your story, please write us at anothersituationpodcast@gmail.com or find us on Instagram at Another Situation Podcast.
Another Situation is edited and produced by Point 5 Pinoy. Music is written and performed by Tim Crow.